Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the podcast Strikes Back. My name is Connor, and you are listening to the weekly movie show with my mate Ben.
Hello.
And still, and hopefully for the last time, no George.
Who is back in the country, just decided not to join us this time.
I've given him express instructions that he's not allowed to leave us alone anymore. It has been harrowing, to say the least.
It's too much.
I don't like doing work.
We just need our tech guy back.
Yeah.
It ain't us.
Do. We've got an interesting show today. We have the Oscar nominations are in. We have some composer news about No Time to Die, and we have a stack of new trailers. Two very interesting ones that I want to talk about. Those are Morbius and Birds of Prey, and some other interesting ones as well. So before we get into it in earnest, we always like to take a little moment, talk about what we've watched this week, if we've seen anything interesting. And just see how you're doing. Ben, why don't you kick us off?
Well, this is going to be a very little moment for me because I've been on holiday and I don't think I've watched a single thing.
I was really hoping that yours was going to be longer than that because I don't think I've watched anything either. And I was trying to rack my brain to see if I had put something on, but I don't think I did.
This is the first, I think.
Surely we've watched something. Something.
Look, the weekend I had, even if I did watch something.
It's unlikely you remember.
I'm not going to be able to say much about it,
Yeah. Okay. This is weird. I don't know what to do.
Oh, on to the news, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
What's your favorite color?
Green.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Mine's green too.
Why?
I like to say because I like nature and it's very verdant and think of life. But the actual answer is I like Ninja Turtles and always have.
Oh. That was my excuse.
We can even argue about our favorite color being the same thing.
I will say I was listening to a very interesting podcast featuring Chai Vasarali and Jimmy Chin. Those are two people that I've talked about quite a bit before Christmas. I think actually while you were away. They are the directors of both Maru and Free Solo, which are they're climbing films, but they're just really, really good documentaries that focus on people. And I've been trying to find out as much as I can about their process and their ideas on filmmaking and that. Just because I find that style of storytelling really fascinating. And for them, it's like, I was listening to Jimmy Chin talk about when he decided to do Free Solo, he had to essentially put together a crew, and he was like, the baseline, the first thing that he had to find was people that could climb, or sorry, not Maru, this is for Free Solo, for El Capitan. The baseline was that he had to find people that could climb El Capitan in a day, like every day, like that was nothing. And he's like, already your pool of talent that you can choose from is pretty slim, and on top of that, he had to find like world-class cinematographers and and he was like there's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 people that fit that mold,
so it's a
and
niche
they're all
market.
his mates. Yeah.
And also people who would be willing to make a movie that might turn into a snuff film at any point.
And that's, well, he actually, it was really interesting because he was talking about how that he didn't even mention to Alex Honnold, who's the main guy that actually Free Soloed it. Him and his mates would never actually ask about it, or never like say, when are you going to do it, because they were afraid that he was going to, like, that would give him an idea to do it. And he apparently went to Alex Honnold before he went to Jimmy Chin, went to Chai Vasarhelyi, who's Jimmy Chin's wife and also the co-director of both Maru and Free Solo, and said, I'm thinking about doing Free Cap, or Free Soloing Cap, El Capitan, and I was wondering if, you think that's a good idea, could we do a film about it? And apparently she was like, yeah, that's an awesome idea, like, that's a great story. And she was thinking about it from a director's point of view, and when Jimmy Chin found out, he's like, no, that's a terrible idea, that is so dangerous, like, it's such a, and he was just like, I'm really angry that he asked you and you said yes, because it's a bad idea. So yeah, I'm endlessly fascinated by those two, and I was listening to some of the documentaries that she had done previous to that, and I really want to check out her back catalog, because it seems like there's some really interesting projects that she's done.
Cool.
There you go.
I didn't listen to the final episode of Harmontown again because I just don't want to use it all up. Anyway,
I mean, there's two. Like you get the. I listened right through the jingle episode, which is fantastic.
It's so funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Alrighty, so on to the big story of the week. The Oscar nominations just came out. I say we just go through the broad strokes here because the Oscars are they're always the talk of the town and they're always kind of bullshit as well. But first of all, let's just have a look at the Best Picture nominations. The full list is 1917, Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. First time in a while we've had the full 10, full load of 10, because often they'll do 9, and that always seems like such a purposeful snub to something they could have just included anyway. But also, I was just saying to you before, I think this is the first time in recent memory that by the time the awards roll around, I will have seen every one of these films. I have never seen all of the films on the best list.
Do you think there's any notable
omissions
or ones that are in there that probably don't deserve to be there?
So personally, having seen at this point 6 or 7 of these, I thought
you said that you've seen them all.
I will have seen them all when the awards roll around.
Oh, okay.
I think all of these look pretty well in there. The controversial one, of course, is Joker, which actually has 11 Oscar nominations, the most of any film this year. But otherwise, depending on how you feel on that one, I'm not too fussed about it being in there. I quite like Joker.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's terribly controversial. I mean,
the whole movie has been controversial the whole time, and a lot of people either hated it or thought it was very middling. So I can see why people are coming at it like that, and especially because it's been so heavily represented at this Oscars, more so than any other film. Mm-hmm. So Jojo Rabbit I still haven't seen, but based on what you hear, it seems like it's meant to be there. 1917 I haven't seen, but that looks amazing. Ford v Ferrari meant to be really good. And I've seen everything else. And 2 Netflix films on here.
2 Netflix films, yeah.
Which is pretty huge. We, of course, had Roma at the last awards, I believe. And that still seemed kind of contentious. Like, are they going to start letting Netflix in? And then this year, they're well represented. That's huge for them.
Did Marriage Story have a theatrical release at all?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, so they both had technically theatrical releases.
Yeah,
which is
very short ones. Like they're literally just so they can qualify for this. I
that's exactly right, and it's kind of a bit of a. You feel as though it's a bit of a bullshit. Like, all right, we'll just release it for the sake of it. But it's a massive win for Netflix. I don't think that. Does Amazon have any contenders this year?
I don't think so. I really noticed. Like, what did they even release this year?
Nothing that felt as though it was going for a best director or a best picture or anything like that.
And they've done very well in prior years.
Yeah. So, I mean, that list kind of dominates. There's no notable exceptions outside of, at least I don't think there is, in the rest of the categories.
Well, best director is another group of 5 men. A lot of people are a bit upset that Greta Gerwig didn't get included in there, because there's always one of these every year, which is someone who gets nominated for Best Picture but not Best Director. Yeah, because you got to wonder, like, what's the
difference there? Really?
And I, having seen Little Women, which I probably should have included in my what we've watched this week.
Fucking hell, man.
Little Women. I think she would have really fit in there. But again, I think those are all really good.
Who do you take off though?
Exactly. I would take off Todd Phillips just because it's so people are so pissed about it, I think. And also Todd Phillips comes across as a bit of a douchebag. Joker's got enough nominations. The other interesting thing I noticed was Scarlett Johansson is having a killer year. She's nominated for Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress.
I saw that, yeah.
That is, like, she is fucking nailing it right now. And do you have the picks in front of you?
Yeah. Do
you want to go through categories and just say what you think's going to take them?
Oh, yeah. So, Best Picture, I think there's a strong case for 1917.
Okay. Well, let's go back and forth. Because I think that one's going to go to... I think The Irishman's got a good shot just because it's Scorsese.
I also think there's a left-wing or like a from left field that Parasite takes it as well.
Also, just Joker with the sheer number of nominations, I think could really cause an uproar.
Yeah.
Director?
Bong Joon-ho, I think.
Yep. I think that maybe Quentin, because he's coming so close to the end of his run.
Yeah.
Actor?
I give it to Joaquin Phoenix. It's got to be Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin's a very strong contender. I think Adam Driver as well for Marriage Story could absolutely happen.
Yeah. I love that Jonathan Pryce got a shout out though. I really enjoyed that that little film.
Two Popes. Is that a Netflix one?
Yes.
Okay, because that's got a few nominations as well.
Fuck, what's his name?
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins got, I think, Best Supporting Actor.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure how they chose which one. I suppose Jonathan Pryce is technically the lead, I guess.
Actually, I'm going to say Antonio Banderas is probably going to get actor.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't seen Pain and Glory, but everything I hear is kind of along that line.
Okay.
Actress?
No, I reckon Joaquin Phoenix walks away with that one. Actress, I say, goes to... I'm going to go with the hype on this one, Renee Zellweger.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. There's nothing more the Academy loves than movies about movies and movies about Hollywood.
Although I would love to see Scarlett Johansson get it. Best Supporting Actress?
Yep. I would throw that right at Laura Dern, who has had an amazing year as it is. She's in Little Women as well, but she killed it so hard in Marriage Story.
Yeah. That's a hard one for me. Yeah, let's... Do you think that Margot Robbie has a shot at that?
I would say in Bombshell, the reaction to that movie's been a little...
lackluster?
Yeah, it's such an odd topic. And finally, Best Supporting Actor?
I say that goes to Pesci.
Joe Pesci, yeah, I think that is...
Or, I mean...
kind of a lock. Brad Pitt would be my other pick.
Yeah, I was going to say Brad Pitt,
and
also
Tom
because... nah. It hasn't made enough waves, I don't think.
No. He's Tom Hanks. But
yeah. International feature film, I'm not gonna even try.
Visual effects, which I think is the only Endgame nomination. You know what I wanted to see in here was Godzilla King of the Monsters. I thought that movie was so gorgeous.
For effects,
visual
yeah.
effects, yeah.
So are we jumping to effects? Sorry.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
There's a bunch of boring things in there.
Cinematography, film editing, production design. Yeah. Oh fuck.
Joke of cinematography.
Yeah. Oh wait, we didn't skip over sound. No. Okay.
Sound mixing versus
yeah. That's the really big one. Where were we? Visual effects. Yeah, that is surprising. I reckon that Lion King takes that one. I hated the movie, but I reckon that I mean, in terms of like impressive visual effects, it's pretty.
I think the reaction to the lack of emotiveness is going to be too much of a blight on that one's record.
Yeah.
I think Irishman, even though it wasn't the most intense kind of de-aging and people had their complaints, was pretty strong. And 1917, I think, because it's been...
You're not allowed to pick three.
Well, I'm saying 1917 then, because I think the way that was put together as to look like one shot is going to be pretty impressive.
All right.
Anything else you want there?
Yeah, I want to talk about an omission from costume design.
Okay.
I don't get how, The Irishman or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood does better than Avengers for costume design.
Right.
That doesn't make sense to me.
See,
great. You managed to make it look like 40 years ago. They have developed alien costumes. I don't understand this.
They're all period pieces, which is interesting. But I would say costume design... I think Endgame should not be allowed in costume design because they didn't bother. Remember, their suits are all CGI, which bothers me. That's like...
I mean, some of them are.
Well, like the time suits that they...
Yeah, the time suits,
completely CGI.
But it's about the design. It's not about,
I know. That's always bothered me, though. But I take your point.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. The other one that I wanted to put out there is original score. I really hope Hildur... I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name. Gunter. I really hope she makes it because this is the first I've really seen from her.
Which movie?
That's Joker. So she's
right.
a cellist. And if you go back through her backlog, there's barely anything in there. She's helped out with some productions that are really impressive, but this is her first original score. And I remember coming out of the Joker and thinking that was probably one of the most effective things about this film was the scoring, and I think that's 100%.
I agree. That's my favorite one on there.
Deserves to be her.
I like that the Newman brothers are up against each other for this one.
Yep.
I like the Marriage Story score. I think John Williams is probably going to get it because this is his final Star Wars.
I really hope he doesn't. That would be so disappointing.
Fuck you, John Williams.
No, not that I don't like. I mean, any of these people, if they got it, you'd be like, okay, I kind of get it. But like, it's also, I think that out of that, Joker is the best.
I agree. Yeah, completely agree. But I just think John Williams is too much of a brand. And finally, I think, unless you have any other suggestions, animated feature film, we have How to Train Your Dragon 3, I Lost My Body, Klaus, which that's a Netflix one.
Yeah.
Missing Link and Toy Story 4. No Frozen. I think it'll go to Toy Story 4 or maybe I Lost My Body. That has so much good buzz.
Yeah. I hope it's not.
Looks amazing as well.
I hope it's not Toy Story 4. I was just really like,
It's called the Pixar Award for a reason, though.
Yeah. It's underwhelming.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else that's really, stands out to me at least. Yourself?
No. Any other kind of general thoughts on it?
No. I've never been like a huge Oscars guy.
Yeah, same.
I tend to find it sounds like a bit of almost a cliched thing to say, but it's corrupt.
Oh yeah.
It's for the most part, I just don't find there to be much value in it. Look at this. I mean, this sounds so bad. Like they've got 20 different awards for different segments of the industry, and you're just like, oh fuck. You patted yourself on the back enough now. Let's just move on.
Yeah, and everybody knows everybody, and nobody's seen everything, and it's a very flawed system. I always kind of get riled up and get in the conversation when the nominations come out, and by the time the actual awards roll around, I think I only ever check up on what won Best Picture, and I'm usually just like, wrong one.
Yeah.
And then move on with our lives. All right, well, speaking of moving on with our lives, next up, Scott Derrickson has left as director of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness due to creative differences. He will, however, remain on as an executive producer.
Do they just have a template for this kind of shit?
What's that?
Just say
oh right, creative differences.
Yeah.
It's the only acceptable thing you can really come out and say. You would never work again if you said the real reasons, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So this is.
Has there been any buzz about this? Like, was this on was this expected by some people? Like, this kind of comes out of left field for me, at least.
Exactly, yeah. Which leads me to think that this movie is going to be a lot more important to Marvel than maybe we kind of would expect from a sequel to a movie that was almost completely standalone from the MCU at the time. I think this is a shame. Marvel hasn't had a shake-up like this in a while. I feel like since like Edgar Wright with Ant-Man, they've been on a pretty good record with their directors. Oh, of course, James Gunn, but he came back. Derrickson having to step away. I think he did a good job with the first Doctor Strange. I don't think it's anyone's favorite MCU film, but I think he's
not my favorite.
Very solid direction.
I think it's. I actually think it's underrated.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
Because every time I go back and I rewatch it, I kind of think, oh, yeah, this is a really enjoyable film. Like this, there's some really funky stuff that they do with it, and I think that if they kind of stayed on that path, that it could be a really interesting sequel.
Now, I don't want to sound like an anti-Marvel/Disney conspiracy theorist, but what my gut is really telling me is happening here is we've heard previously that Scarlet Witch is going to play a big role in this film.
Yep.
That Loki is going to figure into it, and that maybe it might be setting up some stuff for the MCU going forward. I think Marvel might really be manhandling this movie as a way to wrangle all of their IP. Like we're going to be talking about Morbius a bit later, which has become much more than just MCU adjacent. Looks like that's getting right in there. They've got all these Netflix properties that are just laying by the wayside. They flirted with the kind of alternate timelines and other dimensions with Endgame. I think this movie is going to act as the setup to Phase 4 in a big way.
Okay.
And I think when they're dealing with something that has so many future ramifications, they're going to take a little bit stronger of a hand on it. And I think Derrickson maybe wanted to make a Doctor Strange movie, while Marvel wanted him to make a MCU linchpin film. Yeah. Yeah.
So like in the vein of Civil War or
which is not a Captain America movie, really.
No, barely.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Which is unfortunate. If you look at all the main characters, if you look at they all got at least, I'd say, about 2 films before they were really thrust into these kind of quote unquote MCU films.
The team ups. Yeah.
So you get as an audience member, you still got a little bit of like the Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 is obviously a lot more involved in the MCU world than 1 is, but still felt as though you got like, I got a Iron Man film. Same thing with Thor, same thing with Captain America. So yeah, you know what? I would have liked to have seen a little standalone thing that was allowed to get really funky, like especially with Scarlet Witch in there. I think that could have been really interesting. But
yeah, because Doctor Strange, the first film, I like a lot of what it is as it is, but it left me very much wanting for what a Doctor Strange movie could be.
Yeah.
Especially with the horror elements. That Scott Derrickson came out a few months ago and said this would be like more of a horror movie. And Feige came out just before this actually happened and said, no, it's not really a horror movie. It's just going to be a little scary. So clearly they have gone in a different direction.
Yeah.
And which is a shame because I really got excited at the prospect of kind of this really supernatural, trippy horror movie thing that they could do with it. But whatever. We'll have to see how it pans out because what they're dealing with Marvel, anyway. Like the direction they are going still sounds very interesting.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Anyway. Thought you should at Marvel. Anyway, in very similar news, Hans Zimmer has taken over as the composer for No Time to Die, the new James Bond film, replacing Dan Romer, who left due to creative differences.
How like different could your creative visions be if you're the
composer?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's just the catch-all. It's just the word they use for this wasn't working out. It's like, you've been fired. It's creative differences.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This shit. Yeah, I don't really know anything from Dan Romer too much, but Hans Zimmer stepping in at the last minute. He's got like 3 months or something to do this. It does
feel a little bit like the safe bet.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer I really think has 2 modes. He has I'm working with Christopher Nolan on a really cool film that's going to be amazing mode, and he has
I'm saving a project.
I'm going to let my production, my studio do it, and I'll put my name on it.
Yeah,
It's going to sound fine. That being said, James Bond is a really cool property to have Hans Zimmer on. That seems like an odd fit, but kind of maybe an inspired one, depending on how...
Yeah, I like that property. I think it's a good fit. I'm just kind of imagining the soundtrack for Inception kind of overlaid with something like Skyfall, which... I kind of almost, the more I think about it, the more I hate to do that because I do love Skyfall as it is, but I do think that he could bring something to that property, even if it's his sensibility, even if it's his style, his production company, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, as when he's at his best, he can really enhance any movie.
Yeah,
like. Opinions on Dark Phoenix weren't exactly divided. They were pretty much in the one direction. And I think still he did an amazing score for that movie, and it made whatever was on screen when his stuff was really pumping work for me, at least.
I chucked it on at work the other day.
Oh, yeah?
I just put in my headphones and listened to that score, and it is a really good score.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hats off to him.
Yeah, and hopefully he has the time to make this really work. And hopefully he also has the time to collaborate with whoever's doing the theme song for this one and get some kind of synchronicity going there.
Yeah, so I think it's... I just saw an article saying that Billie Eilish will be doing a song.
Really?
I don't know if it's actually the song, but I suspect it would be. She seems she's a big enough name.
Definitely.
And
cite your sources, please. This sounds very fake to me. So I was just about to say I don't think they've announced anything yet, but yeah, that would be very interesting. I suppose we had like Jack White and Alicia Keys, which was more of a divisive one.
Why was that more? Like, have I missed something?
The Jack White and Alicia Keys one.
Yeah, why was that?
Divisive. It was a very different sound for a Bond song.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, I thought you meant there was something about like. Well, we can't have those people on a Bond. I was like, what's divisive about it?
Jack
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Onwards. I'm not going to cite my sources. I just saw an article that said that. So.
Interesting. All right. Okay. Speaking of potentially spurious information, we're going to chuck this one right into the rumor category.
Rumor mill.
But very interesting rumor, if there's anything to it. According to Collider, who might have recently imploded, Christian Bale is in talks to join Chris Hemsworth in Marvel's Thor, Love and Thunder. Now that would be a massive get for Marvel.
It would be.
DC couldn't get him to come back to do some Batman stuff. So
I'd be very interested to see what they lured him with. Like, what character would be interesting enough that Christian Bale was like, yeah. I mean, apart from the fact that they would have just offered him swaths of money. But, apart from that, is there anything that, he looked at creatively and said, yeah, no, I'll do that?
Yeah, he's a guy who picks his roles very carefully. He seems to really like to dive into them, seems very method. There's not a role he picks that he doesn't seem to alter himself physically intensively in some huge way. I assume this would be the villain role, because this, in terms of, leading good guy characters, this movie is already stacked with Tessa Thompson and Natalie Portman as another Thor.
But I mean, stacked is a relative term in the Marvel universe. I mean, how many good guys were there, or good people were there in any of the Avengers films?
Totally, yeah. But as a standalone picture, I'd say that's more of the safe bet. And as a Taika Waititi film, it remains to be seen how comedic his role would be. I mean, obviously we had kind of Jeff Goldblum and Cate Blanchett in the last one, who were
hilarious,
still comedic to varying degrees.
Jeff Goldblum was. I didn't find Cate Blanchett to be comedic at all.
Oh, I think there was a little bit of it in there though. Her with Scourge and whatnot. But the good thing is that if that is the direction they go, Christian Bale can be incredibly funny, as we've seen in stuff like American Psycho, in which he was almost channeling Jim Carrey for that insanely manic role. So, like I said, this one's a complete rumor, but I would like to see this go ahead.
I'm fascinated. I'm genuinely interested in that. I don't know how likely it is, but genuinely interested.
And I think it's also fair to assume that this is not Marvel's clout that he would be drawn by. Like, this would be Taika Waititi.
Yeah,
because this guy has come up so much in the past few years. That
I'm still waiting for his fall. Like, it seems like it has to happen. Like, they're just, and I don't want to get in. Like, I don't
super villain.
Yeah, I don't want to.
It happened eventually.
I don't want to make it seem as though that's what I want. I'm just like, I like him so much that I'm just kind of preparing myself for when he will inevitably disappoint me. Who hurt me?
Not Taika yet. Jojo Rabbit's only got like 70-something%, like 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, I think, which is interesting. I think that's pretty low for him.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. Anyway, what time is it?
It's trailer time.
Oh boy.
It's time for some trailers. And first on our list is Morbius, the living vampire, played by a living vampire.
It's almost hard to imagine we've finally gotten a trailer for this movie. It seems like such an actual thing.
Well, when I saw that it had been released, in my mind I was kind of like, well, no, that's not right. That's meant to be like a film that's coming out, not like anywhere actually. No one's actually been crazy enough to put this into production, to like actually film stuff, to create a trailer. Like, that would be insane.
So this movie has some very interesting larger world ties. Should we talk about that? MCU. I think we should talk about the actual trailer first. So the movie on its own.
The first thing that comes up. Wait, so did you want to do the movie on its own first?
Yeah, I just think talk about the movie on its own merits.
I have little to no interest in this.
Yeah, it there's so much to it. It looks like some 90s thing. It looks like something that's spun off from...
kind of like Spawn or something. Like
Blade.
Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, Jared Leto is a phenomenal actor a lot of the time. He has that one big black mark on his career, which is the Joker, obviously. So interesting.
I don't even really think that's his fault. Like, people keep going like, I can't believe like Jared Leto fucked up the Joker. I'm like, well, I mean, what are you talking about? Like, he was barely in it. Like, it was. Yeah. Anyways,
but in terms of public opinion, of him as an actor,
I got sidetracked by like
that's one he's never going to really live down. So maybe that's why he's jumping back into the comic book fray so quickly. Yeah, trying to make an iconic character for himself to wipe the slate clean.
And going with Morbius.
Morbius the living vampire. Yeah, that A+ character.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem like there's much to it. It's like a Dracula Untold level looking film, or
worse.
Yeah. Jared Harris though is always good to see. From Chernobyl, I absolutely love that guy. He's like the mentor sort of character. In this. But otherwise, hard to imagine this drawing the kind of numbers that something like Venom did.
Venom was like that kind of perfect storm, I think, of
Iconic character.
Bit of a comedy. I really loved the performance by
Tom Hardy. Yeah.
Tom Hardy. And I think that was a bit of a perfect storm.
Mm.
This one, I just don't see any of that coming together.
Yeah, it's like watch the draw. It's not the character. It's not the actor. There's
no like obvious comedy.
I didn't even know who that is. That being said, I like these kind of more offbeat, offshoot products. You know, I like what DC's doing now with this throwing all the shit at the wall. I kind of like that people are doing something just maybe a little less cookie cutter, even though this looks like a throwback to much more generic movies. Yeah.
I suppose, but for me, it seems very odd because, and let's move into the larger implications. There's two big things. One was more of a marketing thing about like the studio that brought you Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man, and you're like, all right, well, calm down.
The studio that
had the fuck down.
Some hand in bringing you.
But the obviously the really big implication, or the big, I guess, teaser almost, is the appearance of
Michael Keaton
as
an unconfirmed character who's obviously going to be either alluding to Adrian Toomes, the Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming, or full-blown they're just going to be using that character in this. I think the latter is more likely because Sony owns all of these properties still. And there is, of course, the Spider-Man graffiti in this as well. I don't know if you caught that. There's
I missed it.
Spider-Man graffiti on the wall in an alleyway he's running through with like murderer sprayed on it after the events of Spider-Man Far From Home. So this movie has taken the plunge after all the back and forth on Venom from Feige and Amy Pascal, which is like, he's in. No, he's not. It's not going to happen. Oh, it might happen. It seems likely. This one is putting its foot firmly in that this is connected to the MCU, but not in a way that's any more concrete than the Netflix shows did or things like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did.
Yeah.
There's plenty of properties that pulling at the coattails of the MCU saying, yes, we're part of this, while the MCU consistently is like, nah, not really.
Yeah.
So I think there's
care less. Like you're inconsequential. Nothing you ever do is going to like affect.
Yeah. Like the Inhumans is 100% part of this whole Marvel production, and it's never ever going to be talked about again. So I think however this goes, like Sony is 100% going to say this is part of it, and Marvel will either say that worked, we can kind of incorporate it in, or we'll just
pat them on the head and
forever.
Be like, okay, that's good for you. You do your thing.
Yeah. You try and get some money out of us. We're going to keep doing our thing over here. What are your thoughts on all this?
I have been somewhat unapologetically against the Sunk. I had a real distaste for Venom, just because I think that it's not a good film. It's not well made. And I don't think that they have done anything since then that has really elevated my level of confidence in Sony in general.
So you're not willing to give them any credit for Homecoming and Far From Home? And I'm not saying that's unfair. I'm not trying to bait you here. Everyone has to make up their own minds about this because we're never going to know who did what.
I don't know. No. I mean, if you look at the track record of Marvel proper, let's say, and you look at the track record and how it has dealt with its properties and how Sony has dealt with Marvel properties, I think that if that's anything to go by, if their previous record is anything to go by, I don't think that you can attribute much, if any, of the success of Homecoming or the other one, Far From Home, to Sony. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible. In fact, it could have been 80% of them, 90% them. But just if you just base it on what you've seen from them, like the studio that made Venom doesn't look like it's the studio that made Far From Home. I would never look at those two films and be like, oh, obviously they're part of the same universe. Obviously they're they have the same producers or the same kind of attention to care, like anything like that. I just don't. There's no parallels for me. So, I think that based on all that, I don't really give them much credit at all.
Yeah, it's so interesting that this is kind of, not including the Spider-Man stuff, their second film out of the gate, because it seems to have so little appeal. But after all the Michigos with Spider-Man leaving the MCU last year and then promptly getting thrust back in for another film, Sony is eventually going to get that character. And unless Disney really ponies up, I think they're going to hold on to him as they have for so long. Which means I think at this point it's kind of inevitable, unless Marvel really does get in there and just buy everything back. It seems inevitable that we're going to be getting more of a standalone Spider-Man universe, which, quality issues aside, like, I'm not going to assume that all their movies are going to be shit going forward. Let's
It's not a bad thing in concept.
Exactly, yeah. I'm saying let's assume that anything's possible. They can make good movies. I much prefer, I think, the idea of Spider-Man having his own kind of corner.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I love seeing Spider-Man as part of the Avengers. I love seeing him as, kind of integral into the world and how it goes. But I mean, when I really think about Spider-Man, when I think about like kind of the more nostalgic aspect of that character, it is just the weekly adventures of Spider-Man in New York City. Like it's just that's what it is.
Yeah, and he stands apart from the Avengers in such an interesting way because he's a poor kid from Queens. I will absolutely get such a thrill out of, even if a lot of these movies are not great, the idea of him going up against like the Sinister Six made up of like a bunch of characters who've had their own movies. Like I would absolutely think that's awesome. And with like Iron Man and Cap off the table, no pun intended, I can't imagine Peter Parker really, like, he's not calling up James Rhodes to hang out,
Yeah.
Like, he's not like, hey, Captain Marvel, let's do a thing together. Let's do a team up. Like, it really makes more sense for him to be on his own, especially after the events of Far From Home, which really could have isolated
set him
a
aside,
lot. Yeah. So, like I said, I don't think Morbius looks any good necessarily. Fingers crossed that it has some unexpected charm, like I found in Venom, because I think this could be something really fun if they keep being kind of bold in what they're doing.
Yeah. Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Birds of Prey.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of bold.
Bold, but not nearly as impactful as I think that they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I was kind of bored by this trailer.
Yeah.
This trailer reminds me of two things.
Mm-hmm.
One is Suicide Squad, which is not a good thing.
No.
And the other is what this podcast has now lovingly calls the Johnny Depp experience, or the Johnny Depp issue with Captain Jack Sparrow, which is that as soon as the quirky side character that could be the fan favorite because it didn't have to drive the plot along gets its own movie, they are suddenly burdened with the issue of driving the plot. And I think that everyone really loved Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad, partially because Margot Robbie was the best of a bunch, but also because this character was allowed to be whimsical. They could have arcs, but they didn't really need, those arcs didn't need to drive the plot of the story. They didn't need to move anything. And I think that that because of that, they're gonna make this movie, and it's gonna labor under that necessity. So this trailer just kind of felt a bit hollow to me. I don't know why. Well, I kind of explained why, but
I really like the trailer. It's not hard for me to like a trailer, though. I find consistently whenever a trailer has kind of striking visuals and a song I like, I'm pretty into it. And I like the Björk song they used in this. I think that was a really interesting choice and worked well for it. I do think this is very much an unknown quantity. It's such a product of necessity with how well Suicide Squad did financially, but how poorly it failed creatively and critically. Yeah. But I kind of like when movies are driven into a corner like that. Like the way this movie is clearly so being driven by the fact that they did not want to bring Leto's Joker back as a main character. Or
do you think they'll kill him off
as a part of her character? I don't know. That's why I'm very interested to see what they do with him, because I wouldn't be surprised if he does show up, even if it's not Jared Leto, if it's just like, a shot from behind and they like blow his head off or something. Like, I think they're gonna do something interesting with it, because the fact that they mention a character in the trailer who was so reviled from the last film, and there's been so much talk about. I like that they're kind of facing it head on like that, and I like that it's almost meta the way they're making this like a breakup film.
I think they'll be really maybe cowardly isn't the right word, but I don't think they'll kill him, but I think they'll kind of, it'll be that big Acme explosion thing, right? Where the implication is that he could be dead, but also no one would blink an eye if he comes back.
Yeah, and he might be Joaquin Phoenix now.
Yeah.
Ace Chemicals changed him again. Yeah, I don't know. It does feel like the Black Mask role in this film could very much have at some point been the Joker. This guy trying to take possession of Harley Quinn. Yeah, I really hope this movie's good, because for me personally, DC has been on an amazing run for the past year or so. And it's so happy to not have to be ashamed to be a DC fan right now. Yeah. And I would really like that to continue. So I hope this is really good, and it's coming out very soon.
Yeah, it's not far off, is it?
Feb 6.
Yeah. Next we have a very interesting looking show called Devs.
So Alex Garland, director of Ex Machina and Annihilation,
which
one of the absolute goats of the director world.
Yeah.
Has come with an FX TV show.
And first off the rank, this looks really good. Like, just visually looks really nice, which is something that always struck me about Annihilation, just not only in terms of how it actually looked, but also the design, which I thought was really strong. And so he's obviously bringing a lot of that to this. I think the eeriness that he brought to Annihilation as well seems to have passed onto this project as well. Which those two things alone make me want to watch this. Yeah,
and it's always great when you take an actor who's not known for something more sci-fi or more cerebral or more.
Are you referring to Nick Offerman? Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks creepy in this.
Yeah, exactly. That can always be so effective, kind of subverting an actor's kind of persona.
I love Nick Offerman. I think he's just the weirdest, almost kind of enigma. He's like this almost parody of traditional masculinity. And every time he talks, I just find myself listening because I find him so fascinating. And that's just him as a person. Him as an actor, I think, is pretty good. But just him as a person, like I'll watch whatever he does simply because I find him as a person to be so interesting. Plus, he really likes whiskey, so he's got me sold.
Also, the lead appears to be Sonoya Mizuna, I think her name is, from Ex Machina, and she was in was it Maniac or no? It was that one about the like you change bodies or something.
I think I know what you're talking about.
The Netflix show, yeah. I didn't.
Good luck getting me to remember a name.
Altered Carbon.
Come on.
Altered Carbon. There we go. I wasn't actually asking you. I was just talking.
Yeah, talking, and then it'll eventually jog your own memory. I was like, oh, come on, like it's just. I'm not the guy to be talking to.
Yeah, I think she's really cool and interesting. So yeah, I actually was like watching this trailer. I could have almost turned it off straight away because I just don't give a shit what it is because it's Alex Garland and I will be there day.
Yeah, you will watch it.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to watch it in Australia. What does FX stream on?
What's FX? Oh, geez, I don't know.
Really hope it's not Foxtel.
Yeah, well, it would be. It's a Fox channel. Yeah. Oh well, one day.
So annoyed by that.
Yeah. What do we got next?
You're not worth $25 a month, Foxtel. For fuck's sake.
Sort your shit out.
Lock and Key.
Lock and Key
is a Netflix film that is a kids film?
Series, I think it is.
Is it a series? I thought it was a film.
No, I believe it's a series, yeah.
Way off then.
Now, this is based off a comic book by Joe Hill, the son of Stephen King.
Who is this? This is what I was trying to figure out while I was watching this. Who is this really aimed at? Like, what age group?
Yeah, it looks very like it looks like something that younger.
It's too old for anyone like under, or it's too. It looks too scary for anyone under like 12, 10. I don't know. I can't really gauge that.
But it also feels very kind of whimsical and not as threatening as maybe hardline horror is.
Yeah.
Which is cool. There's not a lot of that going around anymore. We had Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark in 2019, which seemed like a really cool return to that
Yeah.
like 80s style of these
Goosebumps
movies are
type thing,
genuinely
yeah.
scary, but anyone can watch them.
Yeah. I used to love that.
nice.
I don't know of any shows that really kind of do that anymore, but there was a bunch of shows when I was growing up that were, I mean, they're not horror, but they used a lot of horror elements. And maybe I'm just, I'm not really up to date with the scene with, today's cartoons, but even things like Courage the Cowardly Dog was weird and kind of horror related. There was Tales from the Crypt Keeper, I think it was called. They had Goosebumps, like all these like horror TV shows.
Yeah, Erie, Indiana was one I really, really used to like. Just kind of like anthology series as well that would often end with like the main character. Like,
did you have
dying
Tales
or
from the
being
Crypt Keeper?
No, I did watch a fair bit of it though.
Okay,
later on DVD.
It's a little fantastic, like as you said, anthology type thing. So yeah, maybe like, I mean, if anyone out there has kids or themselves watches, more up to date cartoons, let us know if there's any kind of modern equivalents of those kinds of shows.
There was a very recent Netflix one a few months ago that I checked out a couple episodes of. I thought it was not very good, but I guess the ones we watched as kids probably weren't either.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see someone doing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on. We've got Fargo season 4. I have a massive omission in my watching history, I suppose you can call it. Never watched Fargo.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan.
You've seen the movie?
No, like nothing.
I haven't seen the movie or...
I have never seen a
seasons.
Fargo film, TV series, and everyone that I talk to about it is like, oh, obviously you have to go check out the Fargo. Like it's if you like Coen Brothers, then obviously.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things I've never gotten to.
I'm too old for that. Oh, you have to see this thing. I can't believe you haven't seen this thing. That's such an annoying personality trait.
It also makes me want to see that thing less.
Yeah,
because I feel like I'm being forced. I'm like, I will watch what I want to watch.
So I don't want to do that to you, but I think this...
But also, definitely watch this film.
And also, this trailer, I think, has something that I could never offer you in terms of making you want to watch it, which is Timothy Olyphant's in it.
I do like Timothy Olyphant.
Which I think... And the good thing is you can totally just start from season 4 as well.
Yeah.
Because it's an anthology series... disconnected tales, all in very different time periods with just slight references to each other. I have seen the first 3 seasons and, of course, the movie. I think Fargo season 1 is just one of the best seasons of television ever committed to screen. Billy Bob Thornton and what's his name, The Hobbit, give
Martin Freeman.
Martin Freeman, yeah, give two of the greatest characters kind of on TV. And I think I might be in the minority. A lot of people seem to think season 2 is even better. And I think they're all great, seasons 1 to 3. So this is another Alex Garland situation. Like, I don't care what this trailer is.
Yeah,
it's Fargo season 4 is coming. Bring it on. One of my absolute favorite shows.
Awesome. I might even get up to date. You never know. Finally, we have Brahms, The Boy 2. I never saw The Boy 1. I'm not sure if you did.
So I haven't seen The Boy... but I did. I think when it came out, I was a little less into like going to see scary movies by myself, because I didn't realize that it's actually fine. You can just do that. So I ended up, I think, reading the plot synopsis because it seemed like there was such a mystery to it. I think I heard about the ending. The ending. So I do know what happens in the first one. I'm gonna have to check it out now though, because this movie seems to be severely retconning the situation of the first film. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything. But after what I've read about the first film, it seems like this is going in the, like, okay, this happened in the first film, but this is what's really happening.
Okay. I'll be honest, I have zero interest to see this film.
Yeah, this trailer was not strong. Like, a trailer generally tries to put forward some of the best stuff in a film, and this has 2 of the lamest jump scares I've ever seen in my life. One which is just Katie Holmes' son jumping at her, and the other is her screaming at a doll. But they have the most intense, like...
No, well, even the third one, which is when the doll does something, and you're like, oh.
But that one is at least something happening, and the other ones are so like spring-loaded cats. It's like, damn, is there nothing else in this movie you could have shown us?
Also, it just seems so by the numbers when it comes to haunted dolls. Like, it just doesn't, like, nothing about this like screams, it's worth your time to watch me. Yeah. Certainly not at the cinema.
Now, the first one did have an interesting kind of premise, so it'd be interesting to see what they're actually doing with this. I'll admit I am curious because
Is it the same directors?
I'm actually not sure, but it can't be as simple as what this trailer looks like because it doesn't look like there's much going on here. And I am a sucker for a scary doll movie. And as much as I love one of the Annabelle films, the Annabelle movies aren't really like scary doll movies. They're just more Conjuring movies that have a doll as kind of the main iconography.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I don't know. I will only give this a go if people say it's good because no interest really. Otherwise,
all right. Well, I think that's it.
That's it.
We don't actually have a question of the week, do we?
You got anything you want to ask me?
Whenever I have I have to answer a question, or whenever I have to ask a question, I immediately go to the posters for some reason, as if the posters are going to give me some inspiration,
Help,
or they're going to help answer.
Oh, I've got one slightly on topic.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite Hans Zimmer score? Since we were talking about him earlier. And I'll jump in first. And this is one that one of his more offbeat ones, I think, which is Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
I think was so amazingly strong and not immediately detectable as his work, which is really cool.
The theme out of that is so spot on. Like I could hardly like dun 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 dun. Like I mean, ooh, that is a good answer.
And I think the other contender for that would have been his Pirates of the Caribbean scores. If he had scored the first film, that was Klaus Badelt, who's one of his proteges.
Yeah,
and the kind of word is that he did do a lot of the work on that. But since he didn't technically come up with the themes, I'm going to go with Sherlock Holmes. But I love the Pirates ones as well.
Oh god, yeah. I'd almost agree with you now that you mentioned, because it wouldn't have come to me initially, but I think you're right. If I had to decide on my own, Interstellar was his as well, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. I really liked Interstellar's soundtrack.
I don't think I've listened to that since the film.
Even if you don't like the movie, I did enjoy the soundtrack. I
mean, his Inception is amazing as well.
I was gonna say, like, if I have to like go for something though, it's probably going to be Inception.
But it's such like the stereotypical. Like,
yeah, but it created that, or I mean, like it really kind of pioneered that stereotype. Yeah. That's kind of the basis on which a lot of films, and particularly trailers, operate now. So yeah, Inception. Although I really like Interstellar, but ultimately I think you're right with Sherlock Holmes. That's such a good. Damn.
Yeah, if I could make a recommendation.
I love the use of violin in that as well. Like it's just so scratchy.
Beautiful. And a recommendation for a track would be Moral Insanity from A Game of Shadows. I think it's the track from when... no, it's just something to do with Moriarty. And it's just...
When they're having their little mind battle?
No, I think it's just him like planning his plan or something, but it's so slow.
I'm going to go
intense.
check that out now.
It's really cool. Anyway, that's the show.
How cool. All right, well... That's our show this week, everyone. Next week, we will have George.
Thank God.
And in fact, I think next week, dare I lie? No, 2 weeks from now, we will have our best of the decade and our best of the year. Best and worst of the 2019. Mm-hmm. So it is a little bit late, but this was the soonest we could do it with everyone here.
And we're going to be one of the few publications that actually waited for the whole year and whole decade to do it.
Yes. Sacrificing visibility for, and that's why we did it. Is
because we've got integrity, goddammit.
I'm gonna go with that line. Yeah, excellent. All right, thank you everyone for listening. If you have any questions for us, please send them through any of the channels that we have. We've got an Instagram, we have an email, we have YouTube, and we have reviews on podcasts. Go hit us up on any of those platforms. We love hearing from everyone, and we will talk at you next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye.